Whistle of fortune for the Lord Jesus Christ, sailing the seas of culture, a real heist. Come along for a view that's unique and so true, an adventure with Rick, a privateer's crew.
Welcome, Levitical Kingdom privateers, to the Privateer's Volley. It is another episode. I'm your host, Rick Hidalgo, and today, special episode. I've got two backstage ready to come out. But first, I want to introduce the topic to you. We're talking about first responders. No, not those first responders. We are going to talk about that kind of stuff, I'm sure. But there is a war on our minds that's been propagated against us for a very long time, and probably chiefly myself, because when I think of first responders, I think of things like Emergency 51, which was a show that when it was going on back in the 70s and 80s when I was a kid. And, you know, I think of those type of shows and Chips, right, with Eric Estrada and stuff like that. That's what I think of when I think of first responders. But I've lived nearly 55 years of life now. And I have had very difficult and interesting situations happen with my 6 children, and had to respond quickly to events that were not necessarily good. Some events were more red than others, if you can read between the lines. But we've been propagandized to this place where we have capitulated to the idea that Babylon has a particular use. And while Babylon may be good at fixing some of those things, they're really good at compelling us into contract. And we do so in so many ways. So what I want to do is talk about this as it relates to stewardship, or stewardism, because we've been having this conversation about stewardism here in the Privateer's Volley. And I want to talk about how first responders, the whole subject, relates to stewardism. And I have no better guest to introduce on that subject than Jonathan Lawrence, one of the members of the Ecclesia Council, and has become a dear friend of mine, and Lynn Rose, she's legendary on our USA calls, okay? And we appreciate Lynn Rose. She has a wealth of knowledge in this area. She says herself she's been doing this type of thing for 20 plus years. That's a long time. So welcome to the Privateer's Volley, Jonathan and Lynn Rose.
Thank you much.
So, Jonathan, we had a little chat beforehand, and one of the things that you made super clear is that there is this misunderstanding that we have that it's imperative for Babylon to always be involved in things that seem to be over our head. It's this idea that we're not capable of handling situations that happen, and we're not capable of being the first to respond to a situation. You want to develop that subject a little bit?
Sure. That for those of you that have children that have seen the movie Volley, someone the other day was likening it to the people on the ship in Volley, in that the ship, being Babylon, has taken over every aspect of everybody's life, and we can you would think it wouldn't be able to get to cartoonish ridiculousness, but we're at that point where, you know, people can't wear certain clothes in public. People can't have certain opinions. They always need to check back with the ship, with Babylon to see what's going on. And we're really conditioned from our very youth to always consult with authorities. And, you know, if we go back 150 years to our great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, they would laugh in our face. You actually called somebody to help you with that? Are you serious? So that's where I'm coming at it from. And as you and I were discussing, it really is mindset. It really is.
It really is. And Lynn Rose, how do you take somebody from a place of fear of handling a situation that they feel is over their head to a place of willingness to react to a situation, knowing that there's actually kind of a timetable?
It's not easy. There's the normalcy bias that exists. People just cling to it. I've been trying, in a lot of different fields, trying to convince people they need to be more proactive and prepare for things and learn how to do things for themselves. And it's just, if nothing happens, they it's not in their mind. They're reactive, and so it's trying to convince them that it's better to have all those things on hand and know how to use them before you get to that point. I had that problem in the fire department. Even the young men there didn't think it was necessary for them to learn first aid and CPR and all that kind of stuff because they were fire guys, And I said, well, you've got team members, you've got family members. What if they go down? You're just going to stand there and not know what to do? It doesn't come to their mind. They don't have that mindset. And so just breaking the normalcy bias. I have the same problem with my neighborhood because I do the neighborhood watch, and the most cooperative person that was in my group passed away this week. So it's really frustrating because it's going to take some horrible event or something terrible to happen before someone's going to think, well, maybe we should have done that. So it's not. I don't know the answers to that.
That really is a mindset question, Jonathan. What do you think? How do we help people get from a place of fear to a place of responsibility?
I can answer this from a position of having done very high level personal protection training, both with edged weapons and firearms and other things like that.
What's an edged weapon? What's an edged weapon?
An edged weapon runs the gamut of many things, right? But basically everything that you touch daily has an edge to it. And most people don't think about something like a stick being an edged weapon. But, one of our top leaders, top instructors used to say, he was the edged weapon trainer for the Marine Corps for a period of time. The lead guy, and they would ask him, what do you do? And he'd say, oh, well, I'm an edged weapons instructor. Oh, what kind of knife do you carry? Because most people automatically go to a knife. But I mean, you got hose, you got shovels, you got other beautiful things. Anyways, we used to do what we would call inoculation training and train people with the basics, and then you turn up the stress progressively until someone can walk through something that would get you to crumple and fall to tears, literally, right now. In 3 months, you would be able to go through that same scenario with, a heartbeat elevated a little bit, maybe to 95 or something like that. And it's very effective, and it works for everything. There's schools for driving. There's schools for motorcycle training. There's schools for first aid, emergency first aid, basic life support, CPR. There's training for all of that, and you can get over this hump where we are conditioned societally to say, oh, I could never do that, to being the person that's the actual first responder and starts performing CPR and designates people, says, you go call 911 right now, you go get that box over there so we can prop his legs up, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really just a matter of training. Now, to piggyback on what Lynn Rose said, convincing people that they will at some point, hopefully not, but will at some point need that knowledge base is the hard one. And I've mentioned it before. We've had people, well, I'm from New Jersey and, we don't believe in guns, but the Border Patrol was arresting people right outside our backyard wall. And so the situation came to them, and all of a sudden they could see a use for something they said they had no use to have at all.
I guess I don't have this objection or this fear to it because I've kind of been through it in this way. I've had 4 of my 6 children at home without any kind of medical assistance whatsoever. We just had church family over and we literally gave them assignments. You warm some towels, you run the worship, you do this. We gave them assignments, and it was just me and my wife in the bedroom. That was it. And I guess I've been through that normalization or that bias before. I've been run down that track where people will object to it right away and say, well, what if this happens, or what if this happens? What if the baby's breech, or what if and you just kind of learn to handle those situations when they come, right? Because you really can't predict what's going to happen. So I guess maybe that kind of got me over the fear hump. But what do you do? And maybe Lynn Rose, I'd like to ask you this question. What do you do to kind of alleviate those fears in the moment? Because everybody's got to take a first step. There's always a first event. There's something that you have to step up to the floor to do because your child is in peril, your neighbor is in peril, something is happening. What do you do to alleviate those what do you want to call them? Butterflies, nerves, that fear at the beginning, and just to move into action.
Right. Well, I was a prepper and for over 20 years, and even after 20 years, I realized that you're never prepared for everything. But I'm seeing so many people today who are starting to see there's problems in the world, like they haven't seen it for 20 years, that especially those with children to take care of, that they don't know where to start. It's so overwhelming. It's just they won't even start because it's just, I can't do it all, And I just say, you do it, you start with where you are and you do one thing at a time, and then you just kind of organize it and just plan out what kind of events you think that are going to be most apt to happen to you, and provide those elements, in your space to be able to mitigate that. I had a neighbor this year who lost her home to a fire. And I thought, oh, now they're going to actually take it seriously. And nope, didn't do it. So, it's an individual thing, but I think it's more overwhelmed than anything else. And so they just don't feel like they can start anywhere. And it's no big deal to go take a first aid and CPR class, and it's very empowering. I think, the schools or homeschooling even, that should be one of the first things they teach children is how to take care of people in an emergency. it's very empowering, and children really soak that stuff up. They can handle emergencies better than adults sometimes. But and you know, different things. If you're out in the country, you need to learn, you know, animal husbandry and gardening, and there's so many skills that to feed yourself, beyond even what I can do. And you can't do 100%, but every little bit you get, I mean, it saves in your grocery bill, and it gives you a skill that you can barter with, because those kind of skills are going to be necessary in the upcoming times. Ecclesia or not, I mean, just in the world the way it is right now, it's important for people to try and learn how to be a do-it-yourselfer again, because, you know, like he said, our grandparents, that wouldn't even have been a thought. What's a prepper? You know, that's just what you do every day. So yeah, it's about it.
You know, you reminded me of a situation, and I'll share this as a testimony to what you just said. You said children are so much more apt to jump into action. My son was at a church event, and the church event, they served hot dogs. Well, hot dogs are one of the worst things you could possibly feed kids, because it's like there's this propensity for the children to eat too much at once, and then you got choking hazards. And it was actually another kid that jumped in and performed a Heimlich and had my son, you know, evacuate that hot dog. So you're right. Kids are far more apt. So which just I ponder this, Jonathan, and I have a hard time reconciling this in my mind. We plan for vacations. We plan for maybe natural disasters. A lot of people build cellars to jump into it during a tornado. We plan for maybe a route to get out of town for a hurricane or something. But we don't plan for, like, your child slips on a buttery floor because they've been really ridiculous and skating, using a stick of butter for skates going around the kitchen floor, which, by the way, that happened in my house. And they fall, and they get a permanent tattoo on their backside, you know, from that fall, and you have to be the one to go in there and butterfly that thing very quickly before, you know, things progress. These are the kind of things sometimes you have to do as a parent. Why is it we don't plan for those things, Jonathan? But when it comes to vacations and simplistic things, we can plan 3 years out.
You know, I believe it falls down to a response I've gotten even from friends. You know, hey, you need to at least minimally prepare for this. You know what, Jonathan? I don't live in the what if world. Okay. But you do live in the when that happens world. And it's hopefully it isn't that's going to happen. But, you know, how often does it? You know, I drove past a car wreck some years ago, and the car was the shape of a letter C around a mesquite tree. And, you know, somebody got to that scene of the accident. There was already 8 or 10 cars stopped, but somebody pulled up and ran over to that car. And, you know, it was a loved one that was called. And that call can come at any time, and that call can be when you're in that car. So there are these things that we have to learn. And something else that Lynn Rose said, you know, when you get that, there's an anxiety for when you do take, you know, first aid, CPR, your first CPR class. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, okay, Rick, let's see you perform some chest compressions on this mannequin, this Annie. or Bob, whoever it is that they have down there on the floor. And a lot of us have stage fright, and you've just been called front and center. And yeah, everybody in that class is going to be watching you. But then when you're done and you stand back up, you get to watch everyone else go through it. And if you're last, you get to watch all the mistakes everybody else made and do it perfect. So then you get an attaboy. That's an attaboy from the instructor. But it's really not that horrible. And after you've taken a few of them, a few of those classes, what's the certification now, Lynn Rose? Is it 2 years now that it lasts?
Yeah, all the different levels are usually, most of them are 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
I got over my stage fright of speaking by teaching CPR. That was the first class I ever taught, and that brings you out of it, So
Yep.
yeah, it's definitely good to do in classes.
Yeah. And like,
There's a nice chat here. We can respond to this one.
mhm.
So people are always depending on Babylon in the back of their minds, how to break these mental chains of dependence. We've become convinced that we are helpless because they've trained us to be. I'm not disagreeing with that. They definitely have trained us to be.
Yep.
And I mean, the propaganda's been there. They use movies and television and, just general life. I mean, even the way they invent the headlines, just it's a scare tactic, right? Even the headlines are a direct scare tactic.
Shock and awe.
Yep.
They don't want us to prosper and be happy. I think, like you said, that be happy and not have anything. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a big conspiracy behind it all,
Yeah, there might even be a conspirator. I'm not sure.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that book is. I read a book once, had a conspirator that was trying to. Anyway, I can't remember the name of that book. But let's do this, because we've talked a lot about mindset. But now, if there's somebody watching who's already in the proper mindset and is ready to jump at it, what kind of steps do you take to move into being a proper first responder? Are there things that you need to consider? Are there things that you need to have on hand almost consistently, knowing that these are things that can get you through a horrific situation?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to something else Lynn Rose said, that start with a situation that you are most likely to encounter. So if you're living on a farm and you're constantly cutting hay, if that's something that you have to do every year, then you want to get a first aid kit that will cover mechanical injuries and have the proper things for that. Now, a lot of the first aid kits that they sell are, they'll say, oh, well, this is made for, rough trauma, and you'll get it and it'll have like 1 or 2 large gauze bandages, and then it'll have a couple of boxes worth of Band-Aids and maybe some little foil packets of Neosporin antibiotic cream or something like that. So you really got to look what's in them. And, that's something we were doing, is compiling a good starter list of stuff, of things to have on hand.
So what does that look like, Lynn Rose? What's a good start? You've been at this for 20 plus years. I'm sure you've got quite a shop.
Well, yeah. Again, it depends on your family. I mean, your needs. That's why sitting down with your family and going over what kind of things can happen and because it's going to be different for a child than it is for an adult, what you need to have. With me, it's just me, so it wasn't hard because I'm taking care of a lot of people in my neighborhood. So if you're planning to take care of others, then you've got to expand your supply. But having things for wounds, that's number one, of course. But also dealing with everyday, illnesses, coughs and colds and things like that. Obviously, I do homeopathy, so that's my first go-to, and then I do herbal stuff. But I don't keep antibiotics. I mean, I have some, but I don't really, focus on that because those do expire, and they're pharmacologically, that's not in my wheelhouse. But like I said, taking classes and learning how to do just not having them, the items, but knowing what to do with them is what's important. People will stockpile and stockpile and stockpile. Ask me how I know. But if they don't know what to do with it, they're hoping somebody else will. So it's, even if you don't have those skills, there may be somebody in your group or neighborhood who does. So if you have those things provided, that they can use, you might have a doctor or a dentist in your neighborhood who, well, I don't have such and such. Well, I do. So being the one who has all those items is important. But starting with what your family needs are, that's the first thing, and learning how to use them. I also recommend, of course, I'm a firearms instructor, so I recommend having a blowout kit, which is for stop the bleed kind of things. Taking a stop the bleed class is real important too.
Yeah, okay, stop the bleed class. And I know that my wife's an herbalist, so when you start talking about stop the bleed, immediately cayenne comes to mind. But it's you're right. You're right. We should be a little bit more proactive in taking classes and starting to understand what it's going to take and to form the proper mindset, for sure. Jonathan, did you have anything to add to that particular subject?
A couple. That, I think we all know that person who says, you know what, I'm going to get into quilting, or I'm going to get into woodworking. And they go out and they buy, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of tools and, wood or cloth for their projects. And then they sit there and look at it and they're like, well, now what do I do with this? So the education really is important, the educational aspect of it. And something else too, as Lynn Rose was saying, with the stuff that you have, the supplies that you have in your house, may help someone else. That's the same concept that the military started with the individual first aid kit, which is, it's a comprehensive kit that fits in something about the size of the old Vietnam issue plastic canteens. And, it's basically stop the blood flow stuff that's in the military ones, but you can set them up for all sorts of different things. For example, here in Arizona, it might be good to have something in there that would help you treat a gross exposure to cacti. That's always it's always entertaining for us natives to watch people's first experience with cacti, but it can be a serious situation. And a lot of times it'll be a dog that does that, chasing a rabbit or something, and then next thing you know, they're covered snout to tip of the tail in, jumping cholla cactus, which leads to a very unfun afternoon.
Knowing your environment and your people and all that, who you're going to take care of, or it determines what you're going to try and keep.
Yep,
this is a good point. I stepped on a cactus one time. You might have enjoyed it, Jonathan. I mean, if you get into those kind of things. But my dad happened to have some whiskey on hand, and that's what he used to treat it. He just pulled that sucker out and poured whiskey on my foot. So, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's how he handled it.
Some people used to chew tobacco and spit it on them, and different things like that. That was whole home remedy.
You ever heard of blowing smoke in somebody's ear for an ear infection?
I used to do ear candling too.
Yep, the candling. Yeah, we've done some of those things.
Well, this past winter, I had a respiratory infection, and I thought, my goodness, how would Granny take care of that? Oh, she would slather my chest up with Vicks mentholatum rub and heat up either a heavy towel or an old used cloth diaper or something and make you wear that under your shirt and send you to bed. And I did that. And the next morning I woke up and it's like I hadn't been sick at all. Yep. But no, I could have contacted Babylon and gone to the hospital and been checked into the hospital and gotten hooked up to a respirator and IVs and all kinds of different things. But I'll pass. Thank you.
A lot of people think they have to have everything. And, it's like I said, if you get to know your neighbors, it's nice that we have an ecclesia, but we're also scattered. But if you get to know your immediate neighbors, they may be able to fill in the gaps that you have. So being able to work with them to what we build, a lifeboat, we call it, so that this person can handle this thing and this person can handle this thing. It's still good to cross-train and know all those things, but, somebody can also fill in the gaps. So, that's why I said it's so important to do things with your neighbors if you can.
Good point. Good point. I know Jonathan said they used the military fit, first aid into a Vietnam canteen-sized package. I prefer to say a 1970s lunchbox because, that's more up my alley. I understand that. I didn't go to Vietnam, so it didn't make any sense to me.
I was a surplus hound, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool, man. Look at all this stuff that just got released.
Military surplus guys.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And this is a good comment right here. We started by building an herbal apothecary and using it. Let me tell you, it pays to have somebody in your house that can identify the things growing in your yard. We have a lot of things that our neighbors thinks are weeds. And they're constantly looking over the fence going, are they ever going to cut their lawn? No, because we're growing stuff that's actually useful. So that is one of the ways that God gives us the increase. And we don't even realize the increase that God is giving us when we have things growing naturally in our yard.
Well, I do plant walks around here periodically to try and show people. And the main thing to remember is to know what things you shouldn't eat that might kill you. And then everything else is kind of free game. It may not taste good, but it might keep you alive, whether it's medicinal or whether it's food. So knowing the things that you shouldn't touch, that's the most important piece.
That hemlock, you might stay away from the hemlock.
So, that's something I've been pushing on our Bible study channel for years now, is learn the plants in your area. So this is, medicinal plants of the desert and canyon west. This one is Sonoran desert food plants, right? I mean, they make them for every geographical area. This one, Southwest foraging, and this one had information in it that these other two didn't. That was very helpful. There are only 6 poisonous plants in all of the Sonoran desert that will, get you dead. And if you learn those 6, everything else, absolutely everything else, has either a medicinal or nutritional, probably both, properties. And it's like that way wherever you live. There's something that our Father put there for us to have, and it's good, And I know it's not like this everywhere. Probably not in South Dakota, but here in the desert all year long, something is fruiting, right? Something is putting forth fruit to provide sustenance. And that you just got to know what it is.
Yeah, there are times of the year where it's difficult to see fruiting in South Dakota. I will agree with you there. There's definitely times of the year, but unless you consider snow a fruit, if snow is a fruit, we have a whole season of fruiting, and a season and a half of fruiting that happens here. So, yeah, this is a great conversation, and the chat is beautiful today as it continues to impress over there. Yeah, plantain is wonderful. You know it's not mullein. Mullen's great too,
Yeah.
but what's the one that actually stitches bones? Help me with that. It was there's one. Oh, my wife is here. She'd slap me and say, "Don't you remember? It's so and so."
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it, but the words
Yeah.
not coming to me.
It's not coming to my mind either.
Well, comfrey is one, but it's not something that grows naturally around my house. So, but
Comfrey, yes, that's the one. Yeah, I got it. It grows naturally here.
call it knit
But-
bone.
Yep. Good stuff. So, I mean, yeah. So look around, find some people that can help you diagnose what you have. You've actually been provided more than you think you have. That's why I keep saying, as part of the stewardism series, we got to get back to the land. We got to get back to the land. We have to connect with it. We have to understand how God is giving us an increase. That increase is for provision, and that provision isn't just for us. It's for our neighbors. It's for the people that are around us. So it enables us to give as well.
Well, I take a lot from what I'm seeing on the landscape every year at different times as to what kind of needs there are, because I see some years, the nervines are more, some years other things are more, and I kind of expect to see those kind of problems that year, because it's not the same every year, and the plants that you figure, oh, this is where it is, maybe in a whole different place the next year. So nature knows what you need, and it's being seasonal and local. That's the things we need to learn.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I got nothing.
Oh, I thought you were about to say something. That's what I was.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, though, it goes back to, if you think about it, this all really goes back to the Garden of Eden. And, what did the serpent promise Eve? You'll be like gods. You'll have immortal life, and you'll know everything. And it's kind of the same thing that they're pulling now. It's kind of the same story. You just let us take care of everything. We will provide the medicine. We're going to have to make it for you. We will provide the food. We're going to have to make that for you as well. And, we're going to have to determine whether or not your living conditions are safe. But it's all already out there that our Heavenly Father has it. It's somewhere along the way, this small cabal of people that I think are linked to the dragon. See AI read that. They said, you know what? Let's charge people for water and make it artificially scarce, and for food and make it artificially scarce, and shelter and make that artificially scarce. I mean, you go back to our great grandparents again. I think I want to move to, Colorado, and they go to Colorado and they build a house right there out of stone and logs, and nobody told them they couldn't, and they just did it. And that's kind of where we are with first responding. You know, we can just do it. We might need to learn a few things, but it's there.
Well, you know, the old adage, food is medicine. You know, originally the food was, but the food has been so changed over the last few decades. You know, they've made it, there's not as much nutrition in it, and it's sprayed with stuff. And so it becomes weaker and weaker to our body. So it's not as much medicinal anymore as it is just food. So medicine steps in to take over the place of the food medicine. And it's all about design.
Yeah, and you know, that's funny too, because I remember when I was a kid watching a documentary. Apparently, in the late '60s and early '70s, they did an experiment they called it the Green Revolution. But we're going to get more yield of vegetables and fruits per acre, and we're going to get, you know, bigger fruit, bigger vegetables, and we're not going to have to increase the fertilizer or anything. And so they did all these crossbreeds and hybrids and everything, and they got bigger fruit, bigger vegetables, but it was like almost nutritionless. And the thing is, they never returned back to the original stuff that was high in nutrition for us. And well, why wouldn't they do that? It's all chasing that dollar. But for the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, right. Good comment in the chat here. I want to put up. You know, this is a good a good tip. I've never heard of Bear Independent, but
he makes first aid kits, and if you use some of his equipment, he will replace it.
Oh, okay.
Use it in an emergency.
And apparently, he supports families coming out of trafficking.
I love his stuff. I don't like listening to him, but he's very basic. But
isn't that the guy that was the former comedian?
No, he's a very, I don't know how to explain it. I can't think of his name. He's a minister now, but
okay,
it's very, well, I'm not going to say anything. But his supplies are good. It's a good source of first aid supplies. Well, cool. When I first came into Christ, I was already a conspiracy theorist. I mean, I knew that the medical world was corrupt and the food world was corrupt, and all the different agencies were corrupt. But I never put it all together as all being connected, and that sure was an eye opener for me. But it is all connected, and food and medicine and everything else. We have to do it for ourselves because they're not going to do it for us.
I got to ask you, Jonathan, because you brought it up. It's not really related to first responders, but you brought it up. I have to ask you this. Are you like me? Do you not believe that there's a shortage of water?
I do not believe there's a shortage of water.
I don't either.
Even the less than truthful scientists, we'll call them that. They've said within the past decade that there is 5 to 7 times the amount of water in all of the oceans, the polar ice caps, rivers, lakes, ponds, streams. 5 times to 7 times the amount of water trapped in the Earth's crust is what they say. So how is it a shortage? I mean,
right.
And it goes also to, if you've researched John D. Rockefeller's oil.
Just the story of the flood, where the waters come from the deep and come down from the firmament, and you got this situation where so there's waters in the deep and there's waters, so I don't think there's any shortage of water. I'm one of those that definitely don't think there's a shortage of water.
It's a bit off topic, but I'm of the opinion, and I've not met too many people that agree with this, but I'm of the opinion that Earth is still drying out from the flood that happened in Noah's day. But now it's a catastrophe. Oh, the lakes are drying up and the streams are drying up. Well, maybe they weren't there before.
You think everything they ever told us is a lie?
Pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty
The
much.
question that people would ask is who's they? Right. Yeah. Mhm.
Dragon's breath, right? Anyways, yeah. In that, these also too, back to these books, like one is by Michael Moore. Not him, though.
Okay, I was going to say,
Not that Michael
don't
Moore.
you dare. Okay, all right.
Yeah, but he has books for every region throughout the North America, basically, and each one of those books has a section for symptoms and what treats it, and then another section for what part of the plant, and how to prepare it for the treatment on various things. And it's just a matter of doing it the first time. There's I watch a lot of creative YouTube channels, manufacturing and stuff. And there's this one guy, Wesley Treat. He's kind of goofy, and he'll fully tell you that. But he just ordered a kit that basically is a block of linoleum, and it teaches you how to hand carve your design, the design of your choice, into this block, and then make printed signs. And throughout this whole episode, it was about a half hour. He said, "I have no idea what I'm doing, but there's always the first time. There's always the first time, and whenever you're going to do something, there's always the first time. So just do it. It's not going to be perfect, and you're going to make mistakes. Just do it."
It's a good point. My wife's beginner book, where she started on her entire journey to understanding herbs and their purpose, biblical purpose, by the way. It was Jethro Kloss's book, Back to Eden. When she read Jethro Kloss and began to walk that journey, it changed our entire family. It changed our ability to stay healthy. It changed our, and I can even testify here. I was feeling horrible. What day was that? Monday? Was it Monday? I think it was Monday. I was feeling horrible. I came home sick from work and just felt terrible, ill. I said, "Honey, I've got to, I don't feel good. Feel like maybe low oxygen or something. I just couldn't get there. I couldn't get to a place of feeling good." And I said, "Do you have anything?" And that's all I got to say. "Do you have anything?" Yes. Then the brain starts to roll. She goes downstairs to her herb lab, literal herb lab. It's kind of like a scene from like some scientist movie. She's down there with her little beakers and everything else, and she's got her little mortar and pestle, and she's doing her thing. And she creates a blend. She gives it to me. I choke it down because it tastes the nastiest thing on earth. It tastes like dirt, and maybe a little of like the devil's butt crack or something, just mixed in there. And then next morning I'm good to go. I'm energized. I feel like I'm, full of the thing that you're required to breathe on earth in order to sustain life, the thing called oxygen. And we're just, good to go. So it works, but you just have to be able to understand what works together. It's like that synergy concept. What kind of things work together? What kind of things don't? Because sometimes you're suppressing this by adding that, that type of thing. So it's it's a whole education system, but you have to start somewhere. You take that first step. You get out there and you start to, like you said, Jonathan, just take that first step and learn.
Yeah, and then something too, and Lynn Rose has said this in these discussions before. Rebecca mentioned back up in the chat a ways that their daughter wants to take one of Bear Independence first responder course.
Yeah, right here.
These courses, there's courses like that all over the place. We can point you in the right direction. But it's a great advantage. A lot of times it's done by veterans who have come back and started hey man, people don't have any idea about first aid, and they'll start a training center in your area or not too far away. And they're typically very good. It helps if they have some sort of educational or training experience. But yeah, I mean, you got to start somewhere. There's the Red Cross. Yes, I said it. There's the Red Cross Association. You can use them for the basic first aid and basic life support, which would be CPR. Yeah, it's expensive. It is expensive. But you have, $50 class. You got to spend 48 of those dollars on administrative purposes.
Is that what makes it expensive? Is the name? You get certification from the Red Cross and okay.
Yep. Or American, what's another one? American Cancer Society does some sort of training like that. American Heart Society. Yeah. Yep. That people are going to see us doing all these hand signs. Oh, you can hear the comments now, right? Anyways, check your areas. Just whatever your closest big town is, type in first aid classes into a search engine, and it'll bring something up.
Yeah, learning the medical part is probably your best starter thing as far as first responders. Obviously, fire, EMS, and police. So taking care of your homestead, protecting your animals and your family. A lot of people realize that law enforcement is not always going to be available or not going to come in time, and you've got to handle that situation. So, like I said, going through these scenarios with your family of what kind of things can happen, and then build accordingly, learning how to use a firearm and how to use it and practicing it. A lot of people will go out and buy guns and never shoot them and don't know what to do with them, and then they have a tragedy. So learning how to be responsible as far as taking care of your security of your home. I had a place one time that was doing they were looking for land to build this community, and they were going to have yoga and food and all these special things. And I said, that sounds really great. A lot of people would like to take what you have. Have you thought about how you're going to protect all that stuff? And it's like that never came to their mind. So, you have to think of it, holistically, for protection of land, property, and your animals and your people, and, against fire and all sorts of things. So
we're thinking good vibes at them, man.
Well, the Lord will take care of us,
Yeah, that's true. And
my neighbors, one of them said, well, if we think about those things, we'll attract them. Okay, then take the batteries out of your smoke detectors. It's ridiculous.
Guilty.
Yep.
Yeah. We cook a lot, so yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to take the batteries out of the smoke detectors or they'll drive you crazy. But yeah, gotcha.
Yep. Same reason we shut off the doorbell that goes off in the wind. The wireless doorbell.
Yeah. So, we've got just a little bit of time left. Let me ask this, because this is another part, again, not related to first responders necessarily, but it kind of is, because one of the other things that's really good to know is how to process your own, animals. Now, I'm not a true processor. I get stuff. I'm a butcher, yes, but I get stuff that's already been cut up. I get like a whole, the whole ribeye roll, and I cut it in steaks or cut it in the roast or whatever. I've never had to handle the entire carcass of an animal, hang it up, end its life, all those type of things. However, there is a great resource, and we're on it right now. This YouTube University is pretty good. There are a lot of people out there who do a lot of teaching on things right here on YouTube. So I would not overlook YouTube University. It's just you're not going to get certification by doing it that way.
I agree, and there's, a lot of the people that do put forth instructional videos on YouTube also run more in-depth training in person. If you're in their area or able to contact them. Good example is when I started welding, I paid for this guy's online courses after watching his YouTube videos. And, come on, you can't beat that. $80 for all the types of welding.
Right. I mean, my son, there's this Irish guy who's really into woodworking. He makes axes and hammers and all kinds of stuff, from the handles of the tools, and he makes chairs and tables and everything else.
Wizard pipes?
And what?
Wizard pipes?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably wizard pipes and, flutes and everything else.
Well, you said he was Irish, so.
Yeah. He's Irish. And he's become quite a good woodworker. In fact, the local vacation Bible school caught wind of him, getting into woodworking, and they asked him to make 50, crosses for a project that they were doing at the VBS, and so he got paid to make a bunch of little wood crosses, and he did a excellent job, but he's learned to do all kinds of things. He's re-handled all of our old axes, and he's sharpened them up for us and all kinds of things. And there's a lot of things you can learn on this YouTube University. There really is. So I don't know, Jonathan. I know that you are Plain Flyer 21, and that you have a channel, and you guys are doing scripture readings all the time, talking about the content of that scripture and applying it to life and so on and so forth. You want to tell people what it is that you got going on?
Long ago, I was with people on Google Hangouts, and we were getting together for weekly Bible readings that certain people of certain belief say that you have to do these readings every week. And simultaneously with that, we started reading scripture straight through in our house. And I was making these huge connections. I grew up with the New Testament is for Christians. And we were making massive connections between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and as well as the books that used to be in the King James Bible that they took out of the King James Bible, plus some other books that are mentioned in the Bible. And we started reading all those, and I told the people that were regular readers, said, hey, I'm getting this huge benefit. Would you all like to read everything? And they said, yeah. So we started the Word series, and we read through. We were reading probably at least 5 chapters a week, and went through that. And now that we've gone through the whole gambit, we are doing it again, but only 2 2 chapters a week usually, and having a more in-depth discussion about that and whether or not it's tying into current events. So yeah, it's every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. You got to figure out your time zone in between there. If you want to join us, and if you want to read with us, just send me a message either on one of the videos or email me if you have that, and we'll send you the link to come read with us too.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jonathan. And I know, Lynn Rose, I don't know whether you're on any media out there or if you have anything going on there, but I know you wrote a book, so tell us about that.
Well, I've written a couple of books, but the first one was just my journey through the health world and how I was positioned in certain places for good reasons. The second book I wrote was about my being saved, what all I went through and the experiences with that. I don't have any YouTube presence yet. I'm working on doing something like that. I do a Bible study with another couple that my best friend and her husband. The three of us do it every weekend. And we go very deep. I mean, we've been doing it 4 years and we've not finished the Bible yet. I mean, we're really digging deep, and we go off on a lot of, rabbit trails. Especially, Genesis is so much in Genesis by itself. So people who just read the New Testament miss out on all the meat of why the New Testament is even here. You can't do one without the other. But I love going deep, and every time you read something, you find something new. So it's always just awesome. So.
I made the mistake of reading, excuse me, I had a Blog Talk Radio show a long time ago, and I made the mistake of reading Genesis, Jasher, and Jubilees at the same time in parallel fashion. Oh, man, I never got out of there. You get stuck in that forever because there's just so much meat. But I know what you mean. So I appreciate that. I'll try to share some of those links. I'm guessing that those books that you wrote are probably available on like Amazon, places like that. I'll try to get those put into the description.
Did you use a pen name for those?
Oh, did you?
No, I just use my name. So yeah, if you just look for my name on Amazon, you should be able to find them. Like I said, there's 2 of them. One of them is called Coming Full Circle, and the other one's 2020 Water Bearer. And I explain what that means.
I guess. Coming Full Circle. Okay. Thank you for that. What was the other one? 2020 Water Bearer?
2020 Water Bearer.
Water Bearer. Bearer.
Yeah. They're small, short books. You can read them in a day.
Awesome. Appreciate both of you for coming on with me, having this discussion. I think it's a very important discussion, and I'm going to be including some of these qualities and characteristics that we've talked about today in my journey of getting my assistant Grok to capitulate to the scripture, because I'm working on getting Grok to capitulate from whatever Elon's into, because I don't think it's scripture, over to a direct scriptural understanding. So,
well, thanks for the invitation. I think this was well worthy and a good time.
Thank you again. Thank you very much. And as always, I want to thank you, Lynn Rose. I want to remind everybody everything we do here at the Seacher Care Report. Good Lord, I knew I was going to do it. Here at the Pivateer's Volley, everything we do is all about the blood. See you next time. God bless.
Thanks for joining our swashbuckling episode. Come back on the morrow for another load. Please leave a comment Privateer, Scalpel.